Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, working with this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And as it's Monday, I have Edwin with me. Hi, Edwin.
G'day, Martin. How you going? And with all what's happening, I thought I'd try a little trick. It seems to work in the movie, so let's see if it works again. So for our viewers, just look very closely at your screen and hopefully it'll work, Martin. Hopefully my Men in Black trick worked.
I've forgotten everything. It's a perfect day, no water, no rain, no COVID. It's amazing. You should do it more often, Edwin.
that was the intention, Martin. That was the intention.
Well, it works, I can tell you. Very good. Now, you sent me a secret message as well, or at least Dusty and Evan sent a secret message, right? I actually think there's probably more intelligence in that message than actually in most of property listings.
Well, Martin, it is a message to our viewers by Dusty and Evan. It's becoming every day is becoming a fight to get a hold of the computer, decoding what they want to say, what they want to relay is actually a lot easier, I think, than decoding what the hedonic imputations and the auction clearance rates have to say, Martin. That's all I can tell you. I think it's a lot easier.
Well, I'll tell you something else. One of our dogs, Meteor, is also very good at the keyboard, so she come and sort of stick a pause in it. And I reckon that there's some wonderful messages. If only I could decode those messages, I'm sure I'd learn the secrets of the universe.
Yeah, well, you're probably, at the time that he does that, Martin, you're probably secretly looking at property listings on REA.
Yeah, that could well be. And, I guess we should also just reflect on the storms and things. I mean, it's very, very, very wet around here. And some of the low-lying areas that actually got rezoned quite recently and built on, guess what? They're having trouble with the water.
Well, it is interesting. Look, from many years ago, from 2015, I think we put out one of the videos of the big floods that we had there around Parramatta, and that's when you and I spoke about the sinkholes that appeared soon after the Parramatta River flooded. I put out some videos and spoke specifically about the how high-rise developments were being built around the floodplains. I don't know whether our viewers know or understand the fact that that there is a fight or a push for the powers that be to raise the level of the dam in order to reclaim a lot of the land around the western region for development. We know that's there's a lot of stuff that a lot of land owners or developers that have land banked, and they want to subdivide, but they won't because of the situation that we find ourselves now. Now, the question is going to be, moving forward, are they going to allow this? Is this going to be the excuse to raise the level of the land, the dam, in order to be able to release that land for subdivision and development?
Well, there's lots of areas where, of course, there's a huge amount of building on floodplains and more of it ahead. But I was thinking more about those parking levels at Parramatta, right? You've got a really nice deep swimming pool now there, which should add some value, surely.
Well, look, if you recall a few years back, John said that there was going to be, I think it was a bit of a suit. So he said there was going to be three beaches from memory being built along Parramatta River. Well, we've got it all now. You've got water views. The only problem is you're going to have to go out and buy yourself an aqueduct in order to get back home. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get back home because you can't use your car anymore. So you're going to have to use an aqueduct. But look, you've got water views now along the Parramatta River, along the I can only just imagine what's happening around Mascot and all those floodplains that were around there, and how where all the water that was diverted from in order for those developments to go up. I mean, it's not only what you can see, Martin, that should be of a concern to many. It's what you can't see, what's happening under the ground, and in what's more to the point, what's not happening under the ground. What's all the shifting that's going on, and the issue is not only what we're facing now, but then if we go through a prolonged period of dryness, then comes a further issue as the ground shrinks again and buildings keep on moving. I recall in 2015, I was putting out videos of when the river had ran its banks. Then I put out a couple of videos on YouTube and had other reports. Then there was the one that I think it was another one in 2013. 2015 was where I think we discussed the sinkholes, Martin, that appeared in Parramatta soon after that flood. Then there was 2013, and if you recall, even last year there was a similar flood. Not as bad as what it has been of late, but look, it's been happening, and the councils, the government, the state government, the planning divisions just don't listen. Why? Because the brown paper bags and the reusable plastic bags that they're using now seem to be the norm, rather than common sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, isn't there, unfortunately. And I was doing some research the other day, looking at some of the new applications for additional development areas up around the floodplains. And in the last few years, there's been a huge number of increases of buildings and building plots that have actually been sold and actually down on the floodplain. So, it's just incredible.
Well, it is. Our viewers probably don't know, but Schofield itself, around the new railway station and around the shopping, the Woolworths and Coles there behind it. I mean, there are proposals in council for something like 3,500 apartments to go there. There's another 1,600, I think, in Rouse Hill, not far from there. And again, these are low-lying plains that were 1 in 100 and 1 in 75 or 1 in 50 flood zones. They've done a lot of groundwork, but it's not enough. It's not enough to contain when you get these deluges like we've been having. But it's not in the new areas that are being rezoned for high-rise development, for greenfill or backfill, whatever you want to call it, because that field is just going to get washed away anyway. So whatever you want to call it, call it wash field, because sooner than later it gets all washed away, and then you got a lot of movement and erosion and subsidence, and you end up with driveways and garages just collapsing. But not only that, but there's the stark warnings in terms of not only where we're building on how, but also how and what we're building with, the materials that are being used that we're building with. That should be, a startling fact as well. But it doesn't get mentioned because it's not the right narrative. It's not the right mantra that the government wants to push out. It's steady as she goes. Go out and buy and spend, build some equity, so that you can then use that equity to go and get your fancy toys, your Louis Vuitton bags, shoes, coats, hats, and whatever. It's all okay. She'll be right, mate, and we'll live on.
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who was looking at a new property that was actually built in some of these low-lying areas, right? And they specifically asked the agent as to what they thought with regard to the flooding situation, because they were a bit concerned. They went and looked at the map. You can see these maps where they show the past history, but also the projections ahead. And the agent said, "No, don't worry. It's 1 in 100 years. It'll never happen." Guess what?
Yeah, exactly. Get it in writing. I always say to our friends and family and anybody else that is within an earshot away from hearing what we're saying, is get it in writing. Get everything in writing. Get everything that the agents say in writing, because then you can have a comeback. Because particularly, I've been saying for 1.5 decades now, since late 20, early 20s, I've been saying that make sure you get everything in writing because of the issues that I could foresee back then with the high-rise construction. Because even back then, I brought out some articles on Property Observer with regards to the higher we build, the harder they fall, and with some of the issues that were apparent to myself and to a lot of other people in the industry, but there was a lot of agents and agencies were hiding potential issues. So if you got it in writing, you could actually, if you have enough in writing, you could actually mitigate and potentially vitiate a contract of sale and walk away and get your money back. You would have only lost a bit of time and energy, but it's better than losing 10%, and more so, it's better than losing a hell of a lot more, 30, 40% drops because you all of a sudden you can't sell, or having to fork up and stump up more money to do rectification work on the building because of the issues that they're going to have post these torrential rainfalls that we've been having, and any other issues. So if we what people have got to realise is it's not only the water that creates the problem, but it's all the seepage that then comes up that the water raises, all the old, particularly in old sites, industrial sites, and sites where they dumped a lot of the toxic waste from decades ago. That's going to be coming up. I'd hate to be living in Opal Tower at this point in time, that's for sure, not only because it's leaning, but also of all the crap that it was built on, that whole precinct for that matter. But apart from that, Martin, it's the fact that once this dries and then the soil shrinks again, and if we don't have any rain for a long period of time, there's other issues then happen as the soil shrinks, and then there's further movement and there's further stresses brought about on buildings from 1 story to 20 levels to 50 levels. So it's you better hope and pray that things are built right.
Well, that's right. And going right back to what you said a little while ago, my response to the people I was speaking to was to get it in writing, right? Make sure that you've got it in black and white, because the fact of the matter is, if it's there in black and white and then later something goes wrong, you actually have potential recourse. But if it's just a conversation on the phone or something like that, or a passing comment face to face, you actually have nothing, right? So it's really important to create a body of evidence. In other words, don't trust anybody. Make sure that you do actually have belt and braces, right? I know it's a bit hard to say, but it's really important.
Well, Martin, you can what our audience should be doing is also printing the marketing material that the agencies put out, because they put out a lot of shit, and they put out a lot of BS, and they make a lot of assertions that they shouldn't be made, financial and future growth and future say not non-worrying or things or whatever, and if you print those out and keep a file, that's something that you can use. And any conversation you have with an agent, any conversation you have in your whilst you're attending these promotional campaigns, you can and you should document that anyway, because it does add value, it does add weight to your case at the end. So if it's not given by the agent, but at least document the conversation, create a timeline. And this is what I found 2 years ago. I was involved with a number of off-the-plan purchases and a number of people that wanted to basically get the deposits back, predominantly from 3 years ago to be exact, were mainland Chinese buyers. They wanted to get out of the contracts, and a lot of it came back to what the agents reported to have said at the time, and the documentation that I assisted their lawyers to download from the internet from the marketing campaigns that the agents put up, and all the notions of grandeur and capital growth and she'll be right, mate, type of promotion about the development. And you know what? The ones that pursued it got their money back. which was great for our clients, or in my participation there. So yeah, every little bit of information you can put it together and keep it. It's for your own benefit anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. A moral of the story there is, as you say, keep the information. And talking of information, there's been quite a flood of emails, hasn't there, Edwin? And some of them have been quite remarkable, actually.
Look, it's rather interesting as to what people are cottoning onto what we're saying, which is great. They're taking the advice. I'm sure you're going to put up a screenshot of the one of our viewers, and I don't know whether I guess the viewers can read it, but in a nutshell, it's you can see, you can read the frustration that this young family have got with regards to purchasing a property, the conversations that they're having with the agents out there, what they're saying, what they're not saying. I've posted a lot of stuff on Twitter. There are a number of other Twitter accounts that post a lot of other stuff with regards to underquoting, and the misinformation that's out there, it is just getting beyond a joke. And again, the regulators need to start regulating and need to start doing their job. But unfortunately, as you and I have said, and we put out, and that is that they're undermanned, understaffed, they're running on the smell of an oily rag with regards to their budgets, and then they're trying to manage so much more. And on top of that, you've got the pandemic, you've got changes to the regulations that have just happened, and there's a lot more going to happen. But I'm still prayerful and hopeful that they will start to take action, but it's just sad to read through and frustrating to read through some of the comments that we're getting, Martin.
Well, this is a particularly interesting one, right? Because essentially they were after a 4-bedder, and the agent assured them that it was a 4-bedder, and then they actually got their own survey, and they discovered that one of the rooms was actually not sufficiently high to class as a room, and therefore it was actually a 3-bedder. Plus a small
the building and pest report from before told them, said everything was okay.
Correct. So the moral of that story, as we've said before, Edwin, is get your own survey. Don't rely on the one that comes from the vendor, because it may not be right, and quite often it's not. But the other is, of course, that it completely changes the value equation in terms of what the property was worth. So again, it's another example of misappropriated value based on mis-selling, and that would have been what it would have been.
Yeah, and look, the damage was done. When I say the damage was done, I've reached out to that family just before our video recording now. I reached out, and they've told me that the property went for 1.9, although the auctioneer, which was rather good. You got to give good commendations where appropriate, and the auctioneer brought it to the attention that there may be some issues with the 4th bedroom, but the damage was done, because a lot of people won't be hearing that on the day, because there's too much emotion flowing and there's too much happening. And look, even on the day, the agent was, they said that the agent was guiding a low figure. It ended up selling for 1.9, because the punters that get emotionally tied up, they're looking for that 4th bedroom. They don't know any different whether it's a sunroom, a studio, a study, an extension without obtaining occupation certificate. They may have issues later on. They may not. They're just taking a punt, and because they just want something now, and they'll pay. They'll get emotional, and they'll pay that extra because they are thinking that they're getting what the agent promoted during the campaign, and not so much what the auctioneer says on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just quote the bit at the end. Thank you again for your excellent coverage of property market. I only wish more people could see what is beyond the surface. And that is, do your own research, right? We can't say it enough. Do your own research. Don't take anything on face value.
Look, it is so important. A lot of people are buying without any worry, because they're relying on that building and pest report that's given by the by the agent and the agency, and as much as they say that they're at arm's length, it's very concerning, and it's very it's not necessarily at arm's length, and a lot of these inspectors aren't doing or aren't attending to the detail that they should otherwise attend to, because I guess in a way they also see it as they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, whatever goes through their minds. But get an independent person yourself that you instruct to find all the faults, because that's what you're going to be paying for. At the end of the day, you're going to be charged the same amount of money that the agents, the report that the agents provide, are going to charge you anyway, or you may pay an extra $100. So what? It's better to get your own than to rely on the ones that are provided by the agents.
Absolutely, yeah, great advice. Now, there was another email. This was from an agent to their database.
Well, this is an interesting one, Martin. I'll just read out a couple of paragraphs, and it's a plea from an agent to his database, and it says, "Vendors, please help stop the underquoting." Figure that one out. This has to stop, as ultimately it is burning your buyers who are starting to leave the market believing it's too hot. I speak to over 100 buyers every week on my listings, and they are getting angry and confused. Recently, agents have taken underquoting to a whole new level to achieve auction results 1.5 to 2.5 above their guide prices, believing that this will bring them listings from impressed vendors. There have been multiple examples of this happening in Mossman over the last couple of months from the usual suspects. It's interesting how they know who it is. And, they should be, fair trading should just open up a department where you can make anonymous, give them anonymous tips. In fact, maybe that's one way of sorting this out, Martin.
Well, it's interesting. In fact, we know Fair Trading has now announced that COVID is over so far as their work pattern is concerned, so they're going back and looking at some of the things they should have been looking at, right? So maybe this will be on their list. But it is remarkable when more reputable agents in the market call out the market for saying overquoting is actually not helping anybody. Actually, it's creating a completely distorted market. And unfortunately, I'm seeing it all over the place, not just in Sydney. I'm seeing it in other centres too, Melbourne in particular at the moment as well. The point about this is there are some gullible people who are going to be paying over the odds, but that's not true and fair reflection of the value of the property. And ultimately, it's going to come back, isn't it?
That's correct. Well, the thing is, Martin, it's. I know the agent. I know the agent, and I know his agency, and I know how they operate. And he brings out some very, very interesting points here. And one of them is says, one Mossman property just sold for 11.2 million with an auction guide of 8.75 million. OMG, that's not a hot market. It's just crazy underquoting, and in my judgment, it's an embarrassing result for the agent. See, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where where the penny drops, and you start finding out. And this is where, but who eats all this crap up is the mainstream media. It's the mainstream reporters and pundits that project this onto the rest of the community. But it is interesting what he points out earlier on, and that is saying that it's driving buyers away from the market, and people that would otherwise be genuinely a buyer, they're just getting put off, and they're just going to sit back, but who knows what's going to happen as more and more people just say, forget it, let's just wait a little bit longer, let's see what happens. But we're going to talk a little bit more as to the what does happen and how it impacts the local community, Martin. That's as to when agents do underquote. We can talk. We're going to talk that at the end of the show.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very important. There are consequences, and that's the point. It isn't just a particular transaction, but it actually stacks up, doesn't it? Unfortunately, and Yeah, not good really.
No, it's not good at all. But that's how they want to play it. That's how the industry wants to play it, and the regulators are undermanned, under resourced, and then there's the industry bodies that they're the ones that promote it. So we're caught between, buyers are caught somewhat, buyers and the ethical agents are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's also another interesting article from the ABC, right, which I thought was quite revealing. I mean, basically, they're saying the property market's odd.
Well, it is, and this is the thing, Martin. Whether it's a hot market, a lukewarm market, a warm market, a cold market, the mainstream seem to talk about one market. It's not one market. You can't paint this whole the property market with one stroke or one brush. Yeah, it's markets within markets. I've said to a number of people last week, you could walk across the road and you could be $100,000 to $150,000 apart, and yet they could be the same bloody houses that got built by the same builder 40, 50, 60 years ago. But you've got to look at these markets in a much more clinically, or more with a microscope and in more detail, which is some of the things that some of the services that you provide, and obviously some of the services that we provide as well, to help our people understand more clearly as to what's really going on, and the comparisons that they make and the things that they say are really, it's really mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting because they quoted Professor Hal Rolson, who said, remember that housing is an unproductive asset, right? And it's something which I keep saying, throwing all money, a greater proportion of your salary into property on the assumption it's always going to go up, is a bit of a narrow perspective, not only because, of course, it means that more and more of bank lending is going into property, which means less and less of it's going into the rest of the economy, but essentially what you're doing is you're locking up more and more of your, your personal wealth into one asset class. And that's okay if it goes on going up. And of course, the government is structurally aligned to try and encourage prices to continue to go higher forever. Remember, before the last election, ScoMo said prices will always be higher and that sort of thing, right? So, politically aligned. But, this is not good for the overall economy. And it's actually not good, I don't think, for people who are having to commit ever large amounts of their salary to try and get into the market. So affordability is, pretty adverse. And it's having just very distortive effects on the broader economy as well as the housing market itself.
Yeah, it's this whole structural issue, as you say, man, that's supported so intrinsically by the government. And when I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we say the government, we're talking about both sides of the stick, because one may appear to be less bombastic than the other, but at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, most of the politicians would be, I would consider to be property investors that don't want things to change because their wealth will diminish as well, a lot quicker. It's interesting how last week we talked about the business confidence, and when we were talking about property and how the government's relying on business confidence, but is it really going to happen with regards to borrowing more money in order to grow your business, to employ people, and keep the economy going? I mean, in the meantime, they keep on staking the fire of the property arena because vested interests, all sorts of things, but yet, what they can do all this, they can say all this, but the sector, one of the sectors that has increased in terms of employment, hasn't it been government sectors from at all levels? I mean, it's like, yeah, you can say all this about wages going up. When the only wages that seem to be going up somewhat relative to to inflation or whatever else are the public servants.
Oh, well,
They're secure.
Yeah.
But the poor bastards that are running businesses, well, they're not. And JobKeeper's coming to an end. I guess as one of our followers on Twitter put it, what's post JobKeeper? I guess it could be Drykeeper, so people can go out and buy umbrellas, to take cover from all this deluge that we're getting recently. I don't have the answers, but things are still shifting and changing. And things are still yet to play out. Where when the insolvency moratorium really, as it's lifted and we start to really find out who owes who money and who's going to start suing who for what's owed or what's been not paid, and we'll see how many small SMEs, small and medium size enterprises are going to be standing, which predominantly employ a lot of people. So there's so much happening structurally. So it's flabbergasting when then the mainstream just make it out as if there's one property market, because whatever's happening in different areas, there's demographics, there's the shifting of populations, the businesses, is it supported by the small local businesses? Is it supported by office development? Is it supported by residential? There's a lot of factors that play into making these property decisions. And now there are other factors that are at play also. And, a number of these that we brought out in previous topics. And one obviously is the shifting of asset classes from one asset to another, which we've discussed with what we've seen a number of ethnic communities doing. The pooling of family resources, multiple family resources to upsize, to get out of apartment dwellings and start buying freestanding homes for that security. Younger families borrowing more. Because obviously they're borrowing more because have dropped so low, but so they're taking the punt and they're borrowing more, and so there's so far we've got something like 2,000, just over 2,000 freestanding homes or home listings, less than what we had in 2020, Martin. This time last year, we were walking into the lockdown. But yet, if there's so much confidence in the market, why do we have so few listings? We've got 20. We're down to about 5,500 or 5,600, 5,700 home listings, and which is about 2,200 less than this time last year when we were going into a lockdown. So, and this is in Sydney. So all these fundamentals that the mainstream and these property don't write about, and because they're not out on the ground, they're still sitting at home writing these stories from crap that they're being fed from the hedonic and auction clearance rates and the main portals, which got invested parties that have got vested interest in pumping the market.
Yeah, well, I agree, Edwin, and it's worth just underscoring a couple of other things. Obviously, some people are looking at property as a better long-term asset than the stock markets or crypto. But the other interesting thing, and I got this published in the AFR a couple of days ago, I updated my Bank of Mum and Dad data. So that's basically where there's intergenerational wealth being shifted. So in other words, mum and dad hand some money to the kids so they can go and buy a property, right? And that fell off a few months ago. It was down, significant, but it's really roared back. And now well over half of all first-time buyers are actually using the Bank of Mum and Dad, right? And the total amount on average is now $89,000 from the Bank of Mum and Dad, which puts them within the top 10 lenders in the Australian market. It's remarkable. It is remarkable how much of that intergenerational wealth shift is going on. Now, that's being driven by a couple of things. One is desperation from first-time buyers trying to get into the market and grabbing dollars from everywhere. The superannuation withdrawals, the money from the government's incentive schemes, etc., etc. And the Bank of Mum and Dad is just one more. right, to try and get into the market because they think that now's the time to get in because prices will only ever be higher, right? Well, we'll just, as we've discussed, don't necessarily think that's the case, and it's going to be a question of market by market. The other issue, though, is that some older people now are thinking, well, that's okay because property prices are now on the way up again. So whilst we were a bit reticent to hand money across before because maybe prices were going down, now we feel much more comfortable about doing it simply because we think that property prices are going to continue to rise, right? So there is a double bluff going on here as to what may happen with regard to the markets, right? But the Bank of Mum and Dad is a real thing, and it's right at the top of the game, and it's all part of this intergenerational shift that I think is pretty critical to understand.
Yeah, well, that's right. And from my side of things, Martin, to add to that is people, unfortunately, aren't doing the due diligence, aren't taking greater care. They're being more emotional than logical when it comes to when they're forced to be beyond their means, and the Bank of Mum and Dad are under greater strain, and on inferior property. Now, whether it be new property, whether it be older property, and you sort of think, well, what choices do they have? A lot of properties are now of the age where they need a major refurb, and to refurb properties these days, it's not $10,000-$20,000. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars if you're not careful. And also, you've got again with what we're witnessing now, you'll have so many subfloor areas in properties that will be absolutely swamps, and you'll end up with all sorts of other issues because they haven't been maintained for decades. So you've got all these other issues that are going to compound future problems, and people are making decisions, as I said, without doing a lot of due diligence and panicking and jumping in. And then on the other side of the coin, you could say that, well, they should be looking at apartments, but then, there aren't a lot of well-built apartment developments out there unless you start looking at the older apartments that were built in the 70s or even 80s to have some sort of peace of mind that they've withstood the test of time, and that you're not going to have major rectification issues or works that are going to be required based on the ones that have been built in the last 10 years. So it's an ongoing plight, but it's so important to just really slow down a little bit and take that care. If you're going to buy, but for goodness sakes, do all that due diligence and do that research, because it's not only the financial stresses that I see that people are going through at the moment, but and putting the Bank of Mum and Dad under. But it's the ongoing cost to maintain these properties, man. It is going to bite a lot of people in the arse, and it's going to bite them hard.
I agree, and I'll make one other point about the apartment market in particular. I had the opportunity to talk to a strata property lawyer the other week. In fact, the show's available. And it was really, really fascinating just listening to her going through the whole discussion about strata and the legal issues and the owners' corporations. I mean, frankly, after listening to her, I don't think I'd go near a strata property. The risks sound to me to be horrendous. I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was going to be that bad.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of owners' corporations that are literally going to go broke, and effectively they're a corporation, they're a company, so they trade as one, and effectively they're trading insolvent because and therefore going a lot of maintenance because they haven't got they've got bugger all in the kitty, and they're not going to be able to maintain the properties. The problems that I see moving forward with a lot of these owners' corporations and these complexes, Martin, is to do with the lifts. They have to be maintained by law. They have to be, and it's not cheap to service a lift, and it's not cheap to service. And a lot of these buildings have got 4, 5, 6 lifts, depending on the size of the development. And when you've got owners corporations just about going bust. More so when you've got owners corporations with owners that are overseas that don't even know what the hell's going on, and they haven't been paying the levies or the levies and haven't been contributing to the sinking fund because they've got no tenants. Well, we're going to, a lot of issues are going to start unfolding, and we're going to start hearing a lot more in the mainstream. Unfortunately, it's a sad state of affair that we've got ourselves into.
Yeah, well, I agree, Edwin. And interestingly, there was an article in The Conversation today that actually spoke specifically about the issues of flammable cladding and how very few of the buildings that have been identified are known, but also how few have actually been remediated. There are thousands and thousands of buildings that need to be sorted out. And that's going to be another bill for the owners corporation and therefore the individual owners. Another reason why, be very cautious about buying into some of these places. The bills just could mount up so fast.
They do, and hence the reason why we've said that I've witnessed and I'm seeing, particularly with the Asian community, a transfer of wealth once again, selling their apartment, their investments because they were easy to manage for them, or easy to keep track of for a lot of the Asian families, and they've decided to sell them. Albeit we may think that they're selling them at a loss, but then they're not really. Particularly when they bought them in the early 60s or 70s. So whether they drop a bit in the sale price, they don't really care because they're shifting that pool of wealth over to freestanding homes where they've got long-term tenancies, they've got better tenancies, and it may cost them a little bit more to maintain them, but there's a greater security. So all this shifting of assets and all this shifting of asset class from one to the other, I just see more and more. It's putting more and more strain and stress on the freestanding homes or the homes, which everybody's seeking for that, because we're still looking. Families are still looking for that security. Again, not knowing whether these bloody vaccines are going to work or they're going to do away with half the population before they really take effect. God knows what's going to happen. All I know is that I'm not traveling anywhere for a number of years, so therefore I won't need to get a vaccine until I find out whether or not it's going to, I keep on saying, try it out on all the politicians first. Let them run vaccinated for the next 6 months, and let's see what happens to them before they force the rest of the population to take it. But then again, Martin, they may force me to take one if I going to attend auctions.
Well, that's possible. Yeah. Well, I did a show with Tarek last Friday. We called it Schrdingers economy, right? It's on this theory that you've got this cat in a box, right, with an isotope, right? And the isotope might decay and irradiate the cat and kill the cat, or it might not, right? And until you open the box, both those futures are actually equal, right? That's how I feel about all of this, right? There are so many uncertainties, right? But I don't want to open the box. No,
that's right, and that's what we say. If you're going to buy property, you buy it with an upside. You buy it in a way that you're going to have. Look, people are going to be buying. That's a fact. People engage us to help them to buy and help them to make a better decision than what they would have otherwise made, or because we can get information, closer to the truth than what that the one-time buyer would otherwise get, because we're out there day in, day out. So you just gotta buy with an upside, and buy thinking that if your circumstances changed, are you able to mitigate any loss of that you may incur if it's an economic change, or if it's a quick sale, a forced sale, whatever it may be. You've got to buy with that upside. That's all I've been saying. That's what I've been telling our people. There's apart from everything else with regards to the markets, because it's hard to talk to some people about the property market, because they talk in general terms, and I like to talk about specifics.
Yeah, well, I agree again on that. And interestingly, I've got these two views. Firstly, if you do your homework and if you find the right price property at the right price point, and it's right for you, there's no reason why you wouldn't buy for own occupation. On the other hand, if you've got an investment portfolio of non-performing properties, as many people do, they probably don't know it because they never do the math. So the first thing is do the math. And secondly, really look at it hard and really ask yourself the question about what is my investment portfolio about. Because the automatic capital appreciation that most people think is there may or may not happen. And of course, we know that rentals in certain areas are under severe stress at the moment and are likely to remain so. And unless we see massive migration, which of course some people are saying that the government wants, chances are we're going to see a population continuing to go down rather than up. And the result of that, the chances are that there will be less demand and more supply, and that has a significant consequence. So the point is, you got to actually do the work.
Yeah, that's right. If you or be dragged along by the ear like everybody else that's out there. And
I wonder what you were going to say there, Edwin. What you're going to be dragged along by. Mine was boggling.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. You don't have to put me on mute. Have to be careful.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You just got to be careful. But look, this is, I guess this leads us to the last point, Martin, and that is that, we've talked about being careful. We talked about what agents are saying. We're talking about the frustrations that people are feeling out there on the ground. And I just want to, it's a feel-good story that I want to share with the viewers now, which is, I guess, feel good for those that like to hate selling agents and underquoters, and that is a twist, the twist of all twists, right? So the scenario is one of our clients was looking to buy in a particular area, and we were able to secure a property, a genuine property, an off-market property, not one of those, we've got an off-market listing and we've invited 1,000 people to it to come and have a look. But a genuine off-market property. The vendor was a semi-retired real estate agent, was 50-50 on whether or not to sell principal place of residence or not, but nevertheless he decided to sell. So we were negotiating the terms and we were negotiating the price, and lo and behold, the property behind his property is also on the market for sale, and the agent decided to underquote it, and they were guiding it very low, and 2.3. I said to my colleagues, this thing's not going to sell for less than 2.8, 2.9. But nevertheless, it put a bit of pressure on our deal because we needed to secure the deal before the day of the auction. The agent, being an agent but semi-retired, is old school, so he's convinced that agents don't really underquote. They sort of do, but they don't. So he's banking on the fact that the property behind his a bit better than his would sell for about 2.5, 2.6. So we secured the deal on our deal for just a little bit under 2.5. And so we're saying this thing's underquoted to the hilt. And sure enough, come the next day, so we contract signed on the Friday. Come the next day, Saturday afternoon, lo and behold, the property behind him gets sold for $2,850,000. So now, if you do an apples with apples comparison, the house behind his is probably worth $250,000 more, and that's me being generous, right? So when you take that away from what we secured, effectively our client got this property $100,000 to $150,000 less than what it would have achieved in an auction campaign. So this is what happens when agents underquote. They don't realise what they're also doing, and that is, in part, in that period of the campaign, they're actually devaluing the neighbours' properties as well, because they're saying to the market, look, you're not up here, we're down here. So if these off-market transactions are happening, or if you're chasing other other listings in the area, you can say, well, the one over there, the one next door, the one behind you, the one around the corner from you, they're guiding this, so therefore yours is smaller, yours isn't as good as renovated as that one. Therefore, I can only offer you this. And you know what? You stand a good chance. You stand a chance. Some may say small chance. You may say a good chance or a great chance, but you stand a chance. It's an opportunity to be able to get it below value. So I'm confident that our clients, albeit our clients, but if that property had the agent being a little bit more proactive, had he taken the property to auction, and there are other reasons why he didn't take it to auction as well, but because of that, it helped us to achieve this. So to our viewers out there, there are opportunities, and you can use these underquoting guides. You can use them in your favor if you're strategic.
Very good. Yeah. So in fact, what you end up doing is effectively devaluing the neighbourhood, and shifting the value around when perhaps it shouldn't be. So fascinating.
Yeah, it's a game. It's like it's a game of poker. So I know in his mind, he because of the guide, he thought, okay, the guiding at a 2.3. Even if they achieve 2.6, that's a house that's worth $200,000 more than mine. I'm getting an offer just under 2.5. I'll take the money and run. But I knew for a fact, I know the agent that sold the other property, and I don't know them personally, but I know the tactics, I know how they operate, and I know the history. So look, I was actually I made a small wager with my colleagues. One of them said it'll sell for 2.8. I said I was actually thought it would sell for 2.9 to 3 million. But I think because of the rain, and because the auction was held indoors and in a very tight lounge room area, there wasn't as much emotion. So the rain cost that vendor $50,000, but still, that was the outcome.
Well, Edwin, that's very interesting, and I think we can underscore again. Property markets are micro markets. There's a lot of things to think about. Don't get carried away, and do your work, do your homework, and make sure that you are going out about it the right way. If you do it right, you can actually still be a winner. But if you do it wrong, you can often get caught out.
That's right. And as always, do your research. And once you think you've researched enough, research again and go back over your research.
That's right. Go around the board once more and do it again. Edwin, thanks for your time tonight. We'll do it again this time next week, and always more to talk about.
Always a pleasure, Martin. And I'd forgotten what happened last week, because it's that Men in Black stuff. Just I've
blew it away.
Yeah, exactly.
See you later, Edwin. Thanks. Bye.
Good on, Martin. Bye.